Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Era, Medieval Age. So in Era, Medieval Age, you start with 3 wall sections, 3 of these little houses, 1 keep, 1 farm, and 1 scorched area. You may put them wherever you like. Your keep must be in the middle of the player's mat, but everything else can go in whatever setup you would like it to go in. Each of these longhouses and the keep give you 1 die, and so you start with 3 yellow dice and 1 grey die. Now the game happens over a assortment of phases within each round. Each round continues until, say, someone builds this into their area. That was the last one of those building types, so we flip one of them over. When all 3 of these have been flipped over, that will be the end of the game at the end of the round. How does this work? Firstly, we start with the dice rolling section. Dice all get rolled behind a screen. Because there's only the 2 of us and look, you're just looking to see how the game plays, I'm going to move that screen out of the way now so that we don't have anything blocked, but be aware that any dice rolling happens behind the screen. So the very first thing is you roll the dice. Now, these dice have Yahtzee rules to them. So for anyone who has played Yahtzee, that is. So you can keep any of the dice that you wish to keep and re-roll any of the dice that you wish to re-roll. So I might keep those 2 and re-roll those. Now you notice that this one has a skull in the middle of it. Anything with the skull in the middle of it, which is one side of each die by the way, but anything with the skull in the middle of it cannot be re-rolled at the moment. I could now choose to re-roll a different die with that, and that's what I end up with. So you've got the maximum of 3 rolls, so the original roll and 2 re-rolls. The next thing that happens is that you take the stuff from all the rolls. So this is 2 stone, that's 4 stone. So we move this along. This one has a picture of 1 wood on it. I'll talk about the axe in a second. So 1 wood, and I'll talk about those shields in a second as well. We do the same over here. I'm going to talk about the swords later. 3 wood, talk about those axes later. I have a choice of taking 2 food or 1 stone, so he'll take 2 food. There's one other thing to remember. In this spot, every farm you have adds 1 more food, which was the yellow token. Okay, this now moves on to feeding your guys. So each guy needs to be fed. There are 4 dice, so 1, 2, 3, 4 on each board. Okay, this now moves down to the fighting. The fighting is a little bit interesting. This is to do with the number of skulls that you have. So if we look at the back of this sheet, it tells you what happens depending on how many skulls you have showing. So this guy only has 1, which means he's losing a skull or losing 1 resource. It's his choice. He can lose a skull, but each lost skull there is a loss of 1 point, or he could lose a resource, which he might just take off on the stone. The guys have stolen that. If he had 2 skulls, then he would lose these skulls here for each cluster of buildings. You'll notice there's a gap between the buildings. They don't count as a cluster. If there was a crossover, that would count as a cluster. So that cluster of building would cost him 1 skull. If 3 skulls are rolled, that's treachery, which means that the opponent scorched an unwalled area. So this is scorched ground, which means that nothing else can be built on it. If this guy managed to get 3 skulls, this guy would get another one of them somewhere onto his board. And then 4, 5, and 6, I'm going to leave them up to you to read because they don't come up that often in actual play. The next thing that happens is building. So what you'll notice is this guy has 2 axes. This guy has 3. Once again, looking at the back of this, it tells you the cost to build each of the different types of things. And it goes over onto the right hand here as well. So this player has a whole bunch of stone and a little bit of wood. So what he might do is a keep, 1, 2, 3. Notice it costs 3 stone to get a keep, which puts that there and gets him 1 more grey die. What he could also build with his lineup of stuff is he could build a lumber mill, or he could build a couple of farms, or he could build some more longhouses. And what he thinks he might do just for the moment is actually build 2 more farms. So that's used all 3 of those axes to build those farms in the keep. You'll notice there's a gap between each of the farms so that if he gets 2 of the skulls in a future roll, they won't have any troubles. And this player gets to build 2 buildings. You'll notice that a lot of these require this, which is the top line, which is on the grey die, in order to build it. And those ones that get some major points, you'll notice there's 5, 4, 3, etc. points. Once all the stuff has been built, we then come down to the fight between the cities. And this happens at the whole table. Anyone who has swords counts out the number of swords. Whoever has the most sword will take a resource from every player who has less swords than them. So normally 2 swords would be no swords, but these shields protect against 4 of the swords. If this guy managed to hold 5 swords, then he would take 1 resource. This is where player order kicks in. So if you're playing a 4-player game, the player who has the black marker would rattle his sword first and take a resources from every player who has less swords than him, etc. all the way around the table, and that protects against swords. That marker then gets passed to the next player, who puts it at the top, and we go again. The game will continue until these guys are gone, turning up 3 of these, or if you're in a larger player count game, so with 4 players, it goes to 5 of those instead of 3. And that's pretty much it. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplaned, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.